In this video, I'm about to show you 30 restaurants you should probably save your trip for and why, starting with number 30, Chipotle. When Chipotle first exploded in the early 2000s, it promised something that felt revolutionary: fast food that was supposedly fresh, natural, and better for you. But over time, the shine wore off, and what's left today is a cautionary tale about how big corporations can take a good idea and water it down until the only thing left is clever marketing. The biggest stain on Chipotle's reputation is food safety. Between 2015 and 2018 alone, Chipotle was linked to multiple high-profile outbreaks of norovirus, E. coli, and salmonella. Thousands of customers got sick, dozens were hospitalized, and the chain's stock price plummeted. It got so bad that Chipotle had to pay a $25 million federal fine in 2020, the largest ever in a food safety case. And this wasn't a one-off. Health inspectors repeatedly found problems with food handling, storage temperatures, and employee hygiene. Beyond the safety concerns, many longtime customers argue the food just isn't what it used to be. Portions have quietly shrunk, prices have gone up, and the ingredients don't always taste as fresh. What started as a place to grab a hearty burrito bowl has morphed into yet another assembly line operation focused on cutting corners while charging more. For folks who remember when Chipotle felt new and exciting, today it's just another reminder that once Wall Street gets its hands on a company, the focus shifts from quality to profit. And in Chipotle's case, that shift has come with some very real risks. Number 29, Romano's Macaroni Grill. Back in the 1990s, Romano's Macaroni Grill was a place people actually looked forward to. You'd sit down to warm bread, olive oil, big plates of pasta, maybe even a glass of Chianti. For many, it felt like a little slice of Italy. But those days are long gone. At its peak, the chain had over 230 locations nationwide. Today, fewer than 40 remain open, a nearly 90% collapse. That doesn't happen to a restaurant that's thriving. It happens when quality slips, management fails, and customers stop trusting what's on their plate. Reviews now are brutal. Microwaved pasta, bland sauces, overcooked chicken, stale bread. Portions have shrunk, but prices soared. A basic pasta dish can run nearly $20, with no trace of the rustic flavor that once made Macaroni Grill stand out. Instead, it feels like a hollow imitation of Olive Garden, without the consistency. Ownership changes made it worse. Brinker International dumped the chain in 2008, and since then private equity firms have passed it around like a leftover casserole. Each one cut corners to squeeze money, ignoring the food, service, and standards. Some locations have even been cited for health and sanitation violations, further driving customers away. What started as a heartfelt concept by founder Phil Romano has become another example of corporations draining the life out of a once-loved brand. For many older Americans, the Macaroni Grill today isn't the restaurant you remember. It's a reminder of how far things can fall. Number 28, Quiznos. If you remember the early 2000s, Quiznos was everywhere. Their toasted subs were a real game changer compared to cold sandwiches at Subway. The bread was crisp, the cheese melted, and the commercials made you think this was the future of fast food. For a while, Quiznos felt like the higher quality alternative. But behind the scenes, the company was rotting from the inside. At its peak, there were nearly 5,000 Quiznos locations across the United States. Today, fewer than 150 remain. That's not a dip, that's an implosion. And it happened because corporate greed destroyed both quality and trust. Franchisees were the first to sound the alarm. Quiznos forced them to buy food and supplies directly from corporate at inflated prices, often higher than what competitors paid. This meant owners couldn't profit, even when business was good. Lawsuits piled up, and many shops simply walked away, leaving empty Quiznos signs across strip malls nationwide. Customers noticed the decline too. Reviews shifted from praising toasted freshness to slamming rubbery meat, stale bread, and sloppy service. The chain cut portion sizes, raised prices, and lost the one edge it had: quality. By the 2010s, Subway dominated, while Quiznos faded into a punchline. Even today, the few surviving locations are plagued by inconsistent food and poor cleanliness scores. For older Americans who remember when Quiznos felt like an upgrade, it's another painful reminder of how quickly a promising idea can be ruined by corporate mismanagement. The toasted sub-empire burned itself out, and what's left isn't worth going back for. Number 27. Frisch's Big Boy. For many Americans, especially in the Midwest, Frisch's Big Boy wasn't just a restaurant, it was a tradition. Families would gather under the sign of the smiling Big Boy statue for burgers, fries, and that famous tartar sauce. Back in the day, it was a true sit-down experience, where quality food and friendly service made it feel special. But like so many chains, the Frisch's of today is a shadow of what it once was. At its height, Big Boy was a household name with locations across the country. Now, only about 31 remain, almost entirely in Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana. That's a steep decline from the dozens that closed in just the last few years. The reasons are familiar and frustrating. Corporate ownership changed hands multiple times, cutting costs and shrinking standards. Customers complain of cold food, dirty dining rooms, and lackluster service. Even the famous Big Boy burger, once stacked high and freshly made, is now often criticized as bland and overpriced. Financial troubles made things worse. Several locations were evicted in 2024 over unpaid rent, including the legendary Mainliner, the very first Big Boy that opened in 1939. Losing such a landmark signaled just how far the brand has fallen. For older Americans who remember Frisch's as a place to take the family after church or a Friday night out, it's heartbreaking to see. What was once a proud regional icon has become just another casualty of corporate mismanagement and declining standards. Today, Frisch's Big Boy isn't about tradition, it's about survival. Number 26. Cracker Barrel. There was a time when pulling into a Cracker Barrel on a road trip actually felt exciting. You'd smell the biscuits baking, see the rocking chairs out front, and know you were about to get a plate piled high with country cooking that stuck to your ribs. For a lot of families, it wasn't just a restaurant, it was an American ritual. Fast forward to today, and that ritual feels broken. Cracker Barrel still has over 660 locations, but the magic? Gone. The food that once tasted like Grandma's kitchen is now closer to a microwaved TV dinner. People complain about bland chicken and dumplings, soggy vegetables, and biscuits that taste like hockey pucks. And let's not ignore the shrinking portions. They've gotten smaller while prices climb higher. Service has nosedived too. What used to feel like Southern hospitality now feels like corporate indifference. Customers report slow service, overworked staff, and meals arriving cold. Even the old country store, once charming, has turned into a cluttered souvenir trap. Here's the kicker. Cracker Barrel's own numbers show the cracks. In 2023, sales stalled, costs soared, and the company's solution wasn't better food, it was pushing tech gimmicks and menu updates nobody asked for. In chasing trends, they lost the people who made them. Older Americans who just wanted a hearty, dependable meal. The truth is, Cracker Barrel isn't that warm roadside stop anymore. It's overpriced, inconsistent, and running on nostalgia. What used to feel like comfort food now feels like a corporate cash grab. Number 25. Johnny Rockets. Remember when Johnny Rockets first popped up? It felt like stepping into a time machine. Red vinyl booths, little jukeboxes on the tables, waiters in paper hats. It was pure 1950s nostalgia. The kind of place that made you want to order a burger, a shake, and pretend you were living in simpler times. For a while, it actually delivered on that promise. Fast forward to today, and the magic has flatlined. Johnny Rockets once had over 350 locations worldwide. Now, most are gone, and the ones left are usually parked inside casinos, resorts, or cruise ships, places where the goal is to squeeze tourists, not serve good food. Walk into one now, and you'll get the same story. Overpriced burgers, watery shakes, and service that feels phoned in. And the price tag? Ridiculous. A burger, fries, and a shake can set you back nearly $20, and half the time the burger looks like it came out of a cafeteria line. Customers complain about greasy patties, limp lettuce, and shakes that taste more like sugar syrup than ice cream. The jukeboxes? Most of them don't even work anymore. For those of us who remember diners as community spots, where the food was hot, the service was friendly, and you left full, Johnny Rockets is a gut punch. What started as a clever tribute to Americana is now just corporate cosplay, trading on nostalgia without delivering the flavor or the feeling. The name might still sound fun, but the experience? A total dud. Number 24. On the Border. Back in the late 90s and early 2000s, On the Border Mexican Grill and Cantina felt like something different. Big, sizzling fajita platters, giant margaritas, and endless chips and salsa. It had energy, it had fun. Oddly enough for me personally, the only memory I have of it is getting a burrito, which was alright by the way before boarding my plane at the airport. The place felt authentic. I especially liked their dark blue chips. For many families, it was the place you'd go when you wanted Mexican food, with a little flair, but didn't want to settle for fast food. But fast forward to 2025, and the story is grim. At its peak, On the Border had more than 150 locations nationwide. Today, barely 60 company-owned spots remain in 18 states, with another 20 hanging on as franchises. The chain filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in March 2025, closing dozens of restaurants in the process. Customers saw the downfall coming years ago. Complaints piled up about watery margaritas, bland fajitas, greasy enchiladas, and poor service. Prices rose, portions shrank, and the festive atmosphere turned into a tired corporate imitation of Mexican dining. Locations that once buzzed with families and happy hours often sat half-empty, with reviews citing dirty dining rooms and slow staff. Now, Pappas Restaurants Inc., a Texas-based group, has swooped in to acquire On the Border, promising to revive the brand. But let's be real, revivals rarely restore the soul once it's gone. For older Americans who remember the sizzling fajitas arriving at the table, the chain's collapse into bankruptcy is another case study in corporate mismanagement and overexpansion. The Border's still technically open, but the On the Border you remember? That's long closed. Number 23. Golden Corral. Golden Corral once sold the dream of endless choice. Steaks on the grill, fried chicken, soft-serve ice cream, and a buffet line that seemed to stretch forever. For families, it was an event. Eat until you couldn't move, all for a fair price. It felt like value, and it felt American. But let's be honest, Golden Corral today is nothing like that memory. The chain still has roughly 360 locations nationwide, but the cracks are obvious. Reviews flood in about lukewarm food, greasy trays, watered-down drinks, and dining rooms that feel more like a bus station than a restaurant. The endless buffet is still there, but the quality? Gone. COVID nearly killed the brand. Hundreds of Golden Corral locations shuttered permanently, and the survivors cut corners. Customers report tough steaks, rubbery chicken, and vegetables that taste like they came straight from a can. The famous chocolate fountain? More like a germ fountain. So many complaints of unclean stations and unsanitary practices that people flat out avoid it. And the price isn't what it used to be. What once felt like a deal is now $15 to $20 a head, and that's before drinks. Families walk away saying they could have gotten better food at a diner for less money. For older Americans who remember when buffets meant abundance and pride, Golden Corral is a sad sight. It's not comfort food anymore, it's a gamble with your stomach. The name might still be on the sign, but the glory days of Golden Corral are long gone. Number 22. Applebee's. There was a time when Applebee's was the go-to for casual dining. Affordable steaks, half-price apps, and that neighborhood grill feel made it a staple for families. Date nights, even after-work drinks. In the 1990s and early 2000s, Applebee's was everywhere, and for many, it felt dependable. But today, Applebee's is the poster child for corporate decline. The chain still has over 1,500 locations in the US, but customer loyalty has evaporated. Reviews are brutal. Microwaved entrees, soggy fries, watery cocktails, and service that swings from painfully slow to rushed and careless. What used to be hearty meals now taste like reheated leftovers straight from the freezer aisle. The numbers reflect it. In recent years, Applebee's has closed hundreds of stores as sales slump. Even their much-hyped Dollarita promotions couldn't cover up the fact that people were tired of paying sit-down prices for food that often arrives cold or half-cooked. For older Americans who remember when casual dining meant quality at a fair price, Applebee's has become the ultimate letdown. The brand has also been mocked for chasing trends instead of fixing its basics. From selling Cheetos boneless wings to desperate menu gimmicks, Applebee's feels more like a laboratory for corporate marketing than a neighborhood spot. Meanwhile, portion sizes have shrunk, while prices creep higher. What was once a comfortable, reliable grill has become another faceless chain, overpriced, uninspired, and coasting on nostalgia. Applebee's slogan used to promise eating good in the neighborhood. These days, most people say, "Not in my neighborhood." Number 21. Steak and Shake. For nearly a century, Steak and Shake was a Midwest treasure. Founded in 1934, it made its name on steak burgers ground from real T-bone and sirloin, hand-dipped milkshakes, and table service that felt like a true diner experience. For families, it wasn't fast food, it was something special. Quality burgers at a fair price, day or night. But somewhere along the way, Steak and Shake lost the plot. At its peak, the chain boasted more than 600 locations nationwide. Today, fewer than 300 remain, and many of those have been converted into counter-service fast casual spots that stripped away the diner charm. The iconic red booths and full-service model? Gone in many places. The decline shows up everywhere. Customers complain of greasy, overcooked burgers, watery shakes, filthy dining rooms, and painfully slow service. What used to be fresh and hearty now tastes like corporate cafeteria food. Even the legendary $4 meal deals, once a lifeline for working-class families, have been quietly scaled back or jacked up in price. The company's finances mirrored the chaos. Years of debt, lawsuits, and mismanagement pushed Steak and Shake to close hundreds of stores. Instead of fixing the food, leadership chased cost-cutting schemes that gutted what made the brand unique. By 2020, they had filed for bankruptcy restructuring, and the brand has limped along ever since. For older Americans who grew up sliding into a Steak and Shake booth after a ball game or late-night drive, it's painful to see what's left. The steak burger that built an empire has become just another casualty of corporate greed and corner cutting. Number 20. TGI Fridays. Back in the 1980s and 90s, TGI Fridays was the spot. It had energy, it had flair, literally. Bartenders tossed bottles, the music was loud, and the walls were covered in quirky memorabilia. For young adults, it was a party in the neighborhood. For families, it was a fun night out with food that actually felt worth the price. But today, the party's over. TGI Fridays has gone from over 800 restaurants worldwide at its peak to barely half that number, with U.S. locations closing left and right. What was once lively and buzzing is now often half-empty dining rooms with tired decor and bored staff. The chain's original personality, fun and fresh, has been replaced by corporate blandness. The food tells the same story. Reviews pile up about frozen entree, soggy fries, dry ribs, and microwaved pasta dishes. The once famous Jack Daniel's glaze, once a signature, is now just another syrupy sauce poured over uninspired plates. And yet, prices keep climbing. Making a dinner for two costs nearly as much as a proper steakhouse, with none of the quality. Financially, it's been ugly. In early 2024, TGI Fridays announced it was closing dozens of U.S. restaurants as sales slumped. The flair that made it cool in the 90s became a joke, and desperate menu gimmicks like endless appetizers couldn't save it. For older Americans who remember when Fridays was buzzing with life, today's version is a depressing shell. The party atmosphere that made it famous has fizzled, leaving nothing but overpriced food and empty tables. Number 19. Ruby Tuesday. In the 1990s and early 2000s, Ruby Tuesday was booming. The chain carved out its niche with a reliable menu, decent burgers, and, most of all, its famous endless garden bar. For many families, that salad bar was the main attraction. Fresh toppings, crisp veggies, and a sense of abundance that made it feel like you were getting real value. Fast forward to today, and Ruby Tuesday is barely hanging on. At its height, the chain had more than 800 restaurants worldwide. Now, fewer than 200 remain, with closures hitting small towns especially hard. Many once busy locations sit abandoned, their signs collecting dust, a reminder of how far the brand has fallen. So what went wrong? Quality collapsed. Customers report stale salad bars, limp lettuce, reheated entrees, and bland burgers. What used to feel fresh now feels like corporate leftovers. Even their new fresh menu campaigns couldn't convince diners when the food coming out of the kitchen looked anything but fresh. The company's finances nosedived too. Ruby Tuesday filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in 2020, blaming the pandemic, but the truth is, the decline started long before. Years of poor leadership, menu confusion, and shrinking portions eroded the trust of loyal customers. For older Americans who remember piling their plates high at the garden bar, today's Ruby Tuesday is heartbreaking. It went from a dependable family staple to a struggling relic, desperately clinging to a past it can't recreate. The sign may still say Ruby Tuesday, but the flavor and the crowd are long gone. Number 18. Logan's Roadhouse. There was a time when Logan's Roadhouse promised the kind of hearty, down-home steakhouse meal folks could count on. Founded in 1991, it grew to hundreds of locations across the U.S., serving mesquite-grilled steaks, ribs, and those famous buckets of peanuts on the table. For many, it felt like the new Cracker Barrel, a casual place where families could enjoy comfort food without breaking the bank. But those days are long gone. By the mid-2010s, Logan started slipping. The chain filed for bankruptcy in 2016, closed dozens of locations, and began cutting corners just to survive. Then, during the pandemic, things got worse. In 2020, its parent company went bankrupt, laying off all staff and shutting down every corporate-owned restaurant. Even though new owners eventually revived the brand, the damage was done. Today, Logan's Roadhouse is a shadow of what it used to be. From nearly 300 locations at its peak, it now operates around 130 across just 22 states. Loyal customers complain about inconsistent service, smaller portion sizes, and steaks that don't taste like they once did. The Roadhouse atmosphere feels watered down, and the quality that built its reputation has been replaced with cost-cutting. For older diners who remember when Logan's meant generous plates, lively energy, and affordable prices, the decline is especially bitter. It's another example of a once-trusted American chain going downhill, leaving behind more disappointment than satisfaction. Number 17. Buffalo Wild Wings. Remember when Buffalo Wild Wings actually felt like a party? You'd walk in, the place was buzzing, TVs on every wall, and wings so big you needed 2 hands to keep the sauce from running down your arm. That was the golden era. Today? Not so much. These days, the wings feel like they've been on a diet. Tiny, sometimes dry, and nowhere near the juicy, messy glory they used to be. And the prices? Let's just say when your bill for bar food looks like you've been to a steakhouse, something's wrong. Folks are saying it's more Buffalo Mild Disappointment than Buffalo Wild Wings. Service is another sore spot. Once upon a time, you could count on a lively server keeping the energy up. Now, it's a coin toss. Either you're waiting forever for cold fries, or your order comes out looking like it took a pit stop on the way to your table. That famous all-you-can-eat wing deal they brought back? That's not generosity. That's damage control to lure people back who remember when the brand still had bite. Sure, the TVs are still there, the beer still flows, and it can be fun with the right crowd. But let's be real. What used to feel like an event now feels more like a cheap rerun of itself. Buffalo Wild Wings hasn't crashed and burned completely, but it's definitely circling the drain of mediocrity. For a generation that grew up on big games and bigger wings, that fall from grace stings more than any hot sauce ever could. Number 16. Burger King. There was a time when Burger King felt like the scrappy underdog of fast food. McDonald's was the polished giant, but Burger King had the Whopper. Flame-grilled, smoky, and marketed as the burger for people who wanted something better. But today, the only thing that feels flame-grilled is the company's reputation. The numbers tell the story. In late 2024, U.S. same-store sales dropped nearly 0.5%, and in the first quarter of 2025, they fell again by more than 1%. For a chain already trailing behind McDonald's and Wendy's, that's a sign customers are leaving in droves. Management even launched a $1 billion Reclaim the Flame plan, which basically translates to, "We know we're in trouble." And the food? That's where the decline really hits. Reviews pile up of chicken sandwiches so dry and dark they're hard to bite, nuggets served like pebbles, and Whoppers with raw edges despite that flame-broiled promise. Fries are another sore spot. Limp, cold, or tasting of old grease. These aren't one-off rants. They're the everyday experiences of people who used to be loyal. Then there's the atmosphere. While competitors remodel into modern, clean spaces, many Burger Kings still look like they're frozen in 2004, faded posters, sticky floors, and dining rooms that feel half-abandoned. Even franchise owners have shuttered hundreds of stores, admitting some are beyond saving. The Whopper is still iconic, but nostalgia can't carry a brand forever. Today, Burger King isn't wearing the crown, it's just struggling to keep the lights on. Number 15. KFC. There was a time when KFC was the crown jewel of fried chicken. Colonel Sanders wasn't just a mascot, he was a cultural icon. Families piled into red and white buckets every Sunday, and the secret recipe of 11 herbs and spices really did taste special. But today, The Colonel's legacy feels more like reheated leftovers than a Southern tradition. The numbers reveal the slide. In 2002, KFC controlled more than 40% of the U.S. fried chicken market. By 2024, that share had dropped under 20%, with Chick-fil-A vaulting past them. While KFC still has over 3,500 U.S. locations, sales have stagnated compared to competitors thriving on freshness and better service. Customer complaints tell the rest. On review sites, diners call the chicken greasy, soggy, or worse, tastes like it sat under the heat lamp for an hour. Biscuits? Often dry and crumbly. Mashed potatoes? Knocked for tasting powdered or watered down? Even the famous gravy has been blasted as bland and inconsistent across locations. The atmosphere isn't helping either. Many KFCs feel outdated, with peeling paint, aging interiors, and a lack of pride. It doesn't feel like dining out anymore, it feels like settling. Meanwhile, Chick-fil-A built a reputation for cheerful service, and Popeyes became a viral phenomenon with its chicken sandwich. KFC just stood still. The bucket may still be iconic, but nostalgia can't cover for cold fries and limp chicken. The Colonel once promised finger-licking good. These days, too many customers are licking their fingers only to ask what happened. Number 14. Sbarro. For a certain generation, Sbarro isn't just a pizza chain. It's a memory. You weren't going out for Sbarro. You bumped into it between a trip to Sears and the arcade. The glowing case of oversized slices promised authentic New York pizza, but anyone who's actually been to New York knows better. It was New York by way of a shopping mall, wide, greasy, and usually sitting under a heat lamp just long enough to lose its soul. Back in its prime, that formula worked. At its peak, Sbarro had over 1,000 locations worldwide, feeding hungry mall rats and exhausted shoppers alike. But when malls started dying, Sbarro went with them. 2 bankruptcies later, one in 2011 and another in 2014, the chain shrank dramatically. Today, it still lingers in a few hundred U.S. spots, mostly airports, gas station plazas, and the last gasps of America's mall culture. The real tragedy is the food never improved. Customers describe the pizza as chewy like rubber, cardboard with sauce, or cold by the time you sit down. Their pastas and strombolis fare no better, often blasted as greasy and reheated. Instead of evolving, Sbarro doubled down on being the filler food of transit hubs, quick, cheap, and forgettable. Sbarro's decline isn't just about bad pizza. It's about a chain that tethered itself to a dying model and never figured out how to stand on its own. When you hear Sbarro, you don't think quality. You think of a slice you grabbed because there was nothing else. Number 13. Hooters. There was a time when Hooters was more than a restaurant. It was a cultural phenomenon. Founded in 1983, it sold itself as food, fun, and flirty service, and for decades that formula worked. The wings were hot, the servers wore orange shorts and tank tops, and the chain became a symbol of casual dining with a wink. At its peak, Hooters operated more than 430 U.S. locations and even expanded internationally. But in recent years, the magic has worn thin. Hooters has quietly closed over 100 restaurants since 2012, and in 2024, more shutdowns hit the headlines as sales flattened. Why? Part of it is cultural. Younger diners aren't as enamored with the restaurant gimmick, and many women and families skip it entirely. Another part is competition. Chains like Twin Peaks and Tilted Kilt modernize the same concept, while mainstream sports bars like Buffalo Wild Wings pulled the crowd without the baggage. Then there's the food. For all the hype around wings, Hooters consistently ranks low in customer satisfaction surveys. Diners complain of greasy, bland wings, soggy fries, and a menu that feels stuck in the 90s. Online reviews regularly call the food overpriced bar snacks, hardly worth the bill. The truth is, Hooters never figured out how to reinvent itself. The world moved on, tastes changed, and Hooters stayed the same. Today, it's less of a destination and more of a punchline, a brand built on nostalgia that now struggles to fill its seats, let alone its buckets of wings. Number 12. Papa John's. Remember when Papa John's felt like the fancy option in the pizza wars? They weren't Domino's with the 2-for-1 deals, and they weren't Pizza Hut with the stuffed crust gimmicks. No, Papa John's promised better ingredients, better pizza. For a while, you actually believed it. The pies looked fresh, the toppings were loaded, and dipping that garlic sauce felt like a ritual. But fast forward to today, and Papa John's is stumbling harder than its founder after his 2018 scandal. The company's reputation tanked with the drama around John Schnatter, and the brand never really recovered its shine. While Domino's turned itself into a delivery tech machine and Pizza Hut reinvented its menu, Papa John's just stood there, insisting it was still better, while the rest of us chewed through soggy crusts and patchy toppings. The numbers don't lie. In 2024, North American same-store sales fell nearly 3%, and early 2025 wasn't much better. Traffic slipped, promotions flopped, and investors complained the chain's value message wasn't landing. Translation: people don't think Papa John's is worth the price anymore. And let's talk food. Customers complain about greasy pies that feel half-hearted, pizzas with topping bald spots big enough to see the box through, and garlic sauce that tastes like the only reason you ordered in the first place. Social media is full of pictures of sad, half-empty pizzas, hardly the better promise that built the brand. Papa John's might still be around, but its slogan feels like a bad joke. Better ingredients? Better pizza. These days, it's more like better luck next time. Number 11. Pizza Hut. There was a time when Pizza Hut wasn't just pizza. It was an experience. Those red-roof dine-ins with stained glass lamps and checkered tablecloths felt like the Friday night destination. The salad bar, the pan pizzas brought sizzling to the table, and yes, the Book It program that bribed us kids with personal pan pies, it was all part of American food culture. Fast forward to today, and Pizza Hut feels more like a relic than a destination. Sure, the brand still has muscle, nearly 7,000 US locations, but the glory is gone. Same-store sales have stumbled, franchisee disputes have forced dozens of closures, and younger customers don't exactly dream of red roof nostalgia. Competitors like Domino's raced ahead with delivery apps and better deals, while Pizza Hut got stuck in the past. The food hasn't helped its case. Customers complain about greasy, dough-heavy pizzas and bland sauce that tastes canned. The stuffed crust gimmick still gets headlines, but it feels more like a throwback than an innovation. And don't even get people started on the dine-in experience. Many restaurants are outdated, empty, or closing altogether. To their credit, Pizza Hut is trying to claw back relevance with the Hut Lane drive-thrus, limited buffet comebacks, and nostalgia marketing. But it all feels like patchwork. Instead of leading, they're reacting. And late. The brand isn't dead, but it's limping. For millions of Americans, Pizza Hut used to mean celebration. Today, it's more like a last resort when every other pizza option is closed. Number 10. Red Lobster. There was a time when Red Lobster felt like fine dining for the middle class. A night out with Cheddar Bay biscuits, endless shrimp, and a lobster tail on the table. That was luxury without the white tablecloth. Families dressed up for it. Dates happened there. It was the seafood chain. But today, Red Lobster is floundering, literally. In 2024, they filed for bankruptcy, shutting down nearly 100 restaurants in one swoop. Sales cratered almost 23% year over year, and their footprint shrank by over 20%. What sank the ship? A mix of bad math and bad timing. Their infamous endless shrimp promotion turned into an endless financial drain. Skyrocketing shrimp costs plus inflation meant every plate sold was bleeding money. Great deal for diners, terrible for the business. And the experience isn't what it used to be. Customers complain the lobster tastes frozen, the shrimp are rubbery, and the biscuits, once legendary, come out dry. Dining rooms that used to feel celebratory now feel dated, with half-empty tables and staff stretched too thin. Meanwhile, competitors like Texas Roadhouse and even Olive Garden are thriving. Red Lobster? It's stuck bailing water. To be fair, they're trying. A new CEO stepped in late 2024, trimming menus, shutting down weak stores, and swearing to right the ship. But for many diners, the brand's reputation has already washed out with the tide. Red Lobster once promised affordable luxury. Today, it's more like a shipwreck, still visible, but sinking fast. Number 9. Noodles Company. Noodles Company was supposed to be the hip answer to boring fast food. Who wouldn't want customizable pasta bowls, global flavors, and mac and cheese that didn't come from a blue box? For a while, it felt fresh, trendy, even a little adventurous. But now, let's be honest, Noodles has boiled itself into bland irrelevance. Here's the hard truth. In 2025, the company announced it would close up to 32 restaurants in 1 year. That's not strategic realignment. That's pulling the plug on stores nobody wants to eat at. And even though same-store sales technically ticked up by 1.7% in Q2, the company still managed to lose nearly $12 million. Imagine selling more pasta and still being broke? That's talent. Then there's the food. Customers are blasting bowls that look like they came straight from a dorm room microwave. Watery Alfredo, sauces with no punch, and portion sizes that feel more appetizer than entree. Prices, of course, went up, because nothing says premium dining like half a bowl of lukewarm noodles for $12. Meanwhile, competitors ate their lunch, literally. Chipotle dominates the bowl game, Cava and Sweetgreen feel modern, even Panera looks sharper. Noodles? It can't decide if it's Italian, Asian fusion, or a glorified Mac Shack. That identity crisis has left it with no edge, no loyalty, and fewer stores every year. The sad part? Pasta is comfort food. Noodles Company took the world's easiest win and still managed to overcook it. Number 8. Long John Silver's. There was a time when Long John Silver's was the king of fast food seafood. In the 1980s and 90s, the chain had nearly 1,500 locations, serving fried fish, hush puppies, and baskets of shrimp to families across America. For a lot of folks, it was the only place you could grab seafood without sitting down at Red Lobster. But those glory days sank fast. Today, Long John Silver's has fewer than 600 restaurants left in the U.S., many of them awkwardly paired with KFC or Taco Bell just to survive. The standalone stores? Almost extinct. And the food? Well, that's where the real trouble begins. Customers complain the fish tastes more like fryer oil than seafood, the breading is soggy, and the sides, coleslaw, hush puppies, fries, often arrive cold or bland. One infamous platter, the Big Catch, made headlines years back as one of the unhealthiest meals in America, packing over 30 grams of trans fat and nearly 4,000 milligrams of sodium. That wasn't a proud record, it was a health hazard. The brand never recovered its identity. While Popeyes reinvented chicken and Chick-fil-A built an empire, Long John Silver's stayed stuck with greasy fish baskets and dated dining rooms. Bankruptcy, ownership changes, and a shrinking footprint sealed the decline. Long John Silver's once offered Americans a taste of the sea. Today it's more like a cautionary tale, a chain that clung to the past, drowned in its own fryer oil, and left behind little more than nostalgia and indigestion. Number 7. Taco John's. If you grew up in the Midwest, chances are you've heard of Taco John's. For decades, it's been the small-town alternative to Taco Bell, best known for its golden, seasoned potato olays and that catchy trademark Taco Tuesday. For loyal fans, it was a comfort stop. But outside of that bubble, Taco John's has slipped into irrelevance. The numbers don't lie. While Taco Bell has more than 7,500 restaurants nationwide, Taco John's limps, along with around 350 stores in 23 states. Whole regions of the country have never even seen one. And instead of growing into new markets, the brand has been treading water for years, closing locations as often as it opens them. The food doesn't help. Sure, the potato olays are still loved, but beyond that, customers complain about greasy tacos, rubbery meat, and soggy shells. On Reddit and Yelp, disappointed first-timers say it tastes more like a high school cafeteria lunch than a crave-worthy taco. When your best item is a side of seasoned tater tots, you've got a problem. Then came the final blow to its identity. Taco John's once owned the trademark to Taco Tuesday. That was their one national claim to fame. But in 2023, after Taco Bell challenged it, Taco John's surrendered the rights. Now the phrase belongs to everyone, and Taco John's is left with nothing unique to stand on. Taco John's isn't dead, but it's fading. For many, it's not a destination, it's a shrug, a relic, and another example of a chain that just couldn't keep up. Number 6. Sonic. Sonic used to be the quirky drive-in of American fast food. Pull up, hit the red button, and a car hop on skates brought you burgers and shakes. It felt fun, different, almost retro. But today, Sonic is coasting on nostalgia while the wheels fall off. The data paints a messy picture. Sonic still has over 3,400 locations, but customer satisfaction is among the worst in fast food. On Trustpilot, the chain averages 1.6 out of 5 stars, with reviews full of the same complaints. Orders wrong, food served cold, or waiting 30 minutes for a bag missing half the items. One reviewer summed it up: "Waited an hour, got nothing I ordered, and what I did get was stone cold." That's not a bad night. That's a brand problem. Food quality isn't saving it either. Diners blast the burgers as greasy but flavorless, fries that taste like they've been reheated 3 times, and milkshakes so thin they feel like flavored milk. Even the app, which was supposed to modernize the drive-in, gets hammered with complaints of crashes, botched mobile orders, and loyalty points vanishing. Sure, Sonic has had spurts of sales growth. The QSR 50 ranked it among brands with 2-year same-store sales increases. But that means little when customers are publicly swearing they won't come back. A business can't live on nostalgia alone. Sonic was once the fast food stop that felt like a treat. Now, for too many, it feels like a gamble. Roll up, cross your fingers, and hope your tater tots actually arrive hot. Number 5. Subway. There was a time when Subway felt like the healthier alternative to greasy burgers. Remember the $5 footlong anthem? That jingle was so big it should have won a Grammy. But fast forward to now, and Subway has gone from eat fresh to eat if you're desperate. The numbers are ugly. Subway has been bleeding locations for years, and in 2024 alone, they shut down over 630 restaurants. That brings the count below 20,000 stores, a steep fall from the 27,000 they bragged about at their peak. Translation: you're way more likely to find a Starbucks than a Subway these days, and that used to be unthinkable. But the closures aren't even the worst part. Customers are blasting Subway online for prices that make 0 sense. One Redditor put it bluntly: Subway is not $18 quality. And they're right. Soggy bread, wilted lettuce, stingy meat portions, and sandwiches that look nothing like the menu photos. If this is eating fresh, I'd hate to see what stale looks like. Even their promos backfire. The new $6.99 footlong digital deal was supposed to win people back, but franchisees hate honoring it, and customers complain of app glitches and missing toppings. Instead of feeling like a deal, it feels like a scam with extra mayo. Sure, Subway is trying with fresh-forward remodels and shiny new menus, but when your core product tastes like a middle school cafeteria sub, no amount of neon paint will save you. Subway isn't gone, but its reputation sure is. Number 4. Red Robin. Once upon a time, Red Robin was the place you went for a gourmet burger without breaking the bank. The bottomless fries were legendary. The towering burgers felt indulgent, and the commercials made you believe this was the fun, family-friendly burger joint America needed. But today, Red Robin looks less like gourmet and more like last option on the GPS. The numbers are rough. In 2024, Red Robin's total revenue dropped by $54.5 million, and net losses ballooned to $77 million, more than triple the year before. Guest traffic fell by over 5%, and in Q2 of 2025 alone, comparable sales slid 3.2%. For a chain that lives on dine-in traffic, that's a big red flag. The company has admitted it plans to close around 70 underperforming locations over the next 5 years, with 10 to 15 restaurants shutting down in 2025 alone. Translation: if your local Red Robin hasn't been updated in years, don't get too attached. It might not be there much longer. And then there's the experience. Diners complain of burgers that taste frozen, fries that aren't hot, and service so slow that bottomless fries start to feel like a cruel joke. Online reviews are filled with once loyal fans saying, "It used to be my favorite, now I avoid it." That's not nostalgia, that's disappointment. Red Robin isn't gone yet, but the shine is. What used to feel special now feels overpriced, understaffed, and uninspired. America wanted gourmet. What it got instead was reheated mediocrity. Number 3. Rainforest Cafe. The Rainforest Cafe was never really famous for its food. It was famous for plastic vines, animatronic gorillas, and fake thunderstorms every 30 minutes. As a kid, it felt like stepping into Jurassic Park with chicken fingers. But as an adult, you realize the jungle magic hides some of the worst dining in casual restaurants. Look at the track record. At its peak, Rainforest Cafe had over 50 locations across the US. In 2025, that number has shriveled down to about 16 restaurants, most of them in tourist traps like malls or theme park districts. That's not expansion, that's survival mode. And the food? Customers rip it apart. Average reviews hover in the 2 to 3 star range, with diners blasting the chain for overpriced frozen entrees, burgers that taste like cardboard, and pasta that could have been scooped out of a microwave tray. Parents complain about paying premium prices for kids' meals that look straight from the freezer aisle. One guest described it best: "You're paying $25 for Applebee's quality, only louder." Even the atmosphere has turned from fun to frustrating. What was once immersive is now just noisy. Animatronic animals screeching while you try to choke down rubbery shrimp or a soggy sandwich. Rainforest Cafe still exists, yes, but mostly as a souvenir shop with tables attached. The jungle gimmick kept the lights on, but the food never caught up. And when the food is this consistently panned, no amount of fake thunder can drown out the truth. This chain went downhill a long time ago. Number 2. Checkers/Rallies. Checkers, or Rallies depending on what part of the country you're in, has always sold itself as the no-frills double drive-through bargain stop. Cheap burgers, loaded fries, and fast service. But let's be real, if you've eaten there lately, you know the reputation. The fries may still have a cult following, but everything else? It's a grease-soaked gamble. The numbers aren't flattering. With around 800 stores left in the US, Checkers is a fraction of the size of McDonald's or Wendy's. It once promised speed and value, but customers complain about waiting 20 minutes in a fast food line only to be handed the wrong order in a soggy bag. Not a great look for a chain built on efficiency. Then there's the food itself. Burgers often top 1,000 calories, with sodium levels pushing half your daily intake in a single sandwich. And quality? Diners describe the patties as rubbery, lukewarm, and tasting like they sat under a heat lamp. Even the buns fall apart before you get halfway through. On Yelp and Reddit, it's common to see people saying they only stop for the fries, and nothing else. Checkers has also had trust issues. In 2019, it suffered a major data breach that exposed customer payment info. Combine that with multiple bankruptcies in its history, and you've got a chain that's been in survival mode for decades. Checkers isn't gone, but it's not thriving. It's the fast food version of a coin toss. You might get hot fries, or you might get regret in a bag. Number 1. Wendy's. Wendy's used to be the rebel of fast food. Square burgers, fresh beef, and commercials that made McDonald's look like a clown show. They had attitude, they had identity, and for a while, they genuinely felt like the better option. But these days, Wendy's feels less like a competitor and more like background noise. The numbers prove it. In 2024, Wendy's quietly closed around 140 restaurants, trimming older units and underperforming markets. That's not collapse, but it's a sign the redhead isn't as invincible as she once seemed. With about 6,000 US stores left, they're still big, but cracks are showing. Then there's the food. Remember when Wendy's fries were decent? Well, they've been reformulated multiple times, and yet customers still blast them as bland, soggy, or cold. Burgers that were once juicy and fresh now get hit with complaints of being smaller, greasier, and rushed. Nuggets? Half the internet calls them rubbery. And don't even get people started on the wilted lettuce in those so-called premium salads. The value pitch doesn't land either. The $5 biggie bag gets customers in the door, but it's shrinkflation in disguise. Smaller portions, higher prices, and nothing that feels like a win. Sure, the Wendy's Twitter account can roast McDonald's all day, but witty tweets don't make up for a lukewarm cheeseburger. Wendy's isn't dead, but it's lost its edge. The once proud challenger has slipped into mediocrity, running on marketing fumes while the food keeps reminding you, maybe fresh isn't always better.